It was a moment that looked perfect on television. Confetti falling, lights exploding across the stage. A young woman standing in the center of America's biggest new show, tears streaming down her face, as millions of viewers watched history being made. In that moment, the world met a 20-year-old singer from Texas named Kelly Clarkson. And the promise seemed simple. Win the competition, become America's next superstar, and walk away with $1 million. That's what millions of viewers believed. But years later, Clarkson would reveal something that stunned fans. According to her, the story behind that $1 million prize wasn't exactly what the audience had been told. And when she finally explained what really happened, it changed how many people looked at the early days of American Idol forever. But to understand why this moment mattered so much, you have to go back to the very beginning. Reality television has always sold a dream. Unknown people step onto a stage. They sing, compete, and somehow transform their lives overnight. For many viewers, these shows feel like modern fairy tales. But sometimes the real story behind those fairy tales is far more complicated. When Kelly Clarkson auditioned for the very first season of American Idol in 2002, she had no idea she was stepping into a cultural phenomenon that would reshape the music industry. At the time, she was just another young singer trying to survive. She had recently moved back home to Texas after a failed attempt to build a music career in Los Angeles. She was working odd jobs. Money was tight. Her dreams were starting to feel distant. Then came a new show promising opportunity, a chance for ordinary people to become stars, and a prize that sounded life-changing, $1 million. But what happened after the cameras stopped rolling was a story almost nobody knew. Until Clarkson finally talked about it.in 2002, American Idol was just an experiment. No one knew if it would succeed. The concept had already existed overseas, but in America, it was a gamble. Producers hoped audiences would fall in love with the journey of discovering a new music star. Thousands of hopeful singers showed up for auditions. Among them was Kelly Clarkson. She didn't arrive with fame or connections. She arrived with talent, determination, and the kind of voice that could stop a room. From the moment she started singing during auditions, the judges noticed something different. There was power in her voice, but also vulnerability. She didn't just sing notes. She told stories. Week after week, viewers began connecting with her. And slowly, almost unexpectedly, Clarkson became the favorite. But something else was happening behind the scenes. Something viewers never saw. Contracts, negotiations, fine print. Because while the show promised a $1 million prize, the actual details were far more complicated than most people realized. During the finale of American Idol's first season, millions of viewers watched as the final votes were counted. When the announcement came that Kelly Clarkson had won, the moment instantly became television history. She cried. Her family cried. Fans across the country celebrated. The narrative was simple. A small-town girl had just won $1 million and a recording contract. But here's where things began to shift. Years later, Clarkson would explain that the $1 million prize wasn't exactly what people thought it was. It wasn't a giant check handed to the winner. It wasn't even pure prize money. Instead, it was structured in a way that surprised many fans when Clarkson described it. Because much of that money wasn't actually a personal reward. It was tied to career costs, management, recording expenses, industry deductions. In other words, the money was connected to building the winner's music career, not simply cash in their pocket. And when Clarkson spoke about it later, she joked that producers had essentially lied about how it was presented on television. Not necessarily illegally, but definitely misleading. And that revelation opened a conversation about how reality television sometimes shapes narratives differently from reality itself. When Kelly Clarkson eventually talked openly about the prize structure, fans were stunned. The idea that the winner of American Idol didn't simply walk away with $1 million challenged what many people believed about the show. But Clarkson didn't say it with bitterness. She often told the story with humor. Because by that point in her life, the prize money didn't define her success. Her career did. She had already become one of the most successful artists to ever come out of the show. Multiple hit songs, Grammy Awards, millions of albums sold. In hindsight, the real prize wasn't the money. It was the opportunity. Still, the revelation showed how television storytelling can sometimes simplify complicated realities. And it made fans rethink the early days of the show. Imagine being 20 years old. Imagine suddenly becoming the most famous new singer in America. The pressure alone would be overwhelming. When Kelly Clarkson won American Idol, her life changed overnight. Every move she made was now watched. Every song was analyzed. And suddenly, she had to navigate the complicated world of the music industry. Contracts, managers, producers, expectations. The million-dollar narrative had helped sell the dream of the show. But the real challenge wasn't the prize. It was surviving the industry. And Clarkson would later admit that those early years were not always easy. She had to fight for creative control. She had to prove she wasn't just a reality TV winner. She had to become a real artist. And that battle shaped who she became. The moment that truly changed Clarkson's story didn't come during the finale of American Idol. It came later, when she released songs that proved she wasn't just a television star. Tracks like Since You've Been Gone turned her into a global pop powerhouse. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. She wasn't the girl who won a TV show. She was one of the biggest voices in music. And ironically, the same show that had created the million-dollar myth had also given her the platform to build something far bigger. Her real success came from years of work, creativity, and resilience. Not a single prize. Over time, Clarkson's comments about the prize became less about controversy and more about transparency. Reality television often simplifies things for storytelling. It needs clear stakes, big rewards, easy narratives. But real life is always more complex. The million-dollar prize became a symbol of how TV dreams and real-world business sometimes look very different. Yet Clarkson never denied that the show changed her life. Without American Idol, she might never have had the opportunity to reach millions of listeners. And the producers who built the show also created a platform that launched countless careers. When fans first heard Clarkson say producers had lied, some expected anger or scandal. But the truth was more nuanced. It wasn't a betrayal story. It was a lesson about the entertainment industry. Sometimes the prize isn't exactly what it appears to be. But sometimes the opportunity is far greater than the reward itself. Clarkson didn't just win a competition. She gained a stage that allowed her voice to reach the world. And in the end, that mattered far more than the number written on a prize check. Today, Kelly Clarkson is no longer just the winner of a reality show. She's a global artist, a television host, a performer whose voice has become part of pop culture history. Looking back, the million-dollar prize controversy feels almost small compared to what came after. Because the real story of American Idol's first winner isn't about a contract detail or a TV headline. It's about a young singer who stepped onto a stage with nothing but a dream and turned that moment into a lifetime career. And in the end, that might be worth far more than any prize money television ever promised. But it does leave one question lingering in the silence after the story ends.